So you've probably heard of procrastination. Maybe you can identify as struggling with that yourself. But what's the opposite of procrastination? Today I'm going to describe a seldom talked about trait, the equally problematic opposite of procrastination, and let's see if you recognize this in your own life too. Hi everyone, Paul Micallef here from Autism from the Inside. I make weekly videos sharing the human side of autism, so make sure you hit subscribe to get the latest content. So this morning I had blocked out some time in advance to sit down and start writing my book. But I was interrupted. I hit a barrier that I was not expecting. There were one or two other important tasks on my to-do list for today, and I found I couldn't concentrate, I couldn't forget about them and focus on the task at hand because I knew they weren't done yet. At first glance, from the outside, this looks very, very similar to a classic procrastination situation. Clear, important task that needs to be done but is a little bit hard to start and I'm not really sure what to do with it. And what I'm ending up doing is delaying that by doing other smaller, slightly less important tasks instead. Have you ever ended up with an immaculately clean house because you had an essay to write? When the executive function to start a big task feels overwhelming, it can be really easy to instead divert that energy and justify it in my brain to think, well, what if I just do this other task that I know I need to do anyway? So I'll just do that and then I'll do the next one and I'll do the next one. And I end up doing half a dozen little relatively easy tasks instead of the one big task that I'm supposed to be doing. And up until this point, it's still sounding like procrastination. And a lot of people I've heard describe their reliance on procrastination, their reliance on, I need the deadline to be imminent, so I've got absolutely no choice but to do the task right now because I have been diverting my attention to so many other things, and now I can't keep doing that anymore because the deadline is right on top of me. Whereas for me, I am actually the exact opposite of that. I hate having a deadline right on top of me. I would much, much prefer to have the time and space to just do things at my own pace. In fact, if I've got a job to do or a bill to pay or something to organize, I would much, much, much prefer to get it done right now so that it's not in the back of my mind thinking I have to do it later, rather than wait and wait and wait and wait and wait until the deadline and then do it at the last minute. So my opposite version of procrastination is the intense desire to do a task that doesn't need doing for days or weeks or months right now and not being able to do any other task until that task is done because I don't want the stress of having to remember it. And obviously this has a lot of positive sides to it. It means I'm often very organized. I do things in advance. I get all my work done. I get all my study done. I get all of the important things that I need to do. I do them as soon as I can without procrastinating because I want to see them ticked off my to-do list as soon as possible. The downside, which makes this just as bad as procrastination, is that when there is something that is not done yet, I feel like I can't rest. I feel like I can't take the time to be creative. I can't invest the time in long-term projects like writing a book because my brain wants to tick everything off the to-do list so that there's nothing that I can think about in the future. A slightly more healthy, productive thing to do would be to say, so this bill doesn't need to be paid until next week. How about I set a reminder for next week and I do it next week? And that way I can stop thinking about it for a week. But unfortunately, my brain doesn't work that way. Instead of thinking, I don't have to worry about it for a whole week, my brain will say, you have a whole week to worry about it. Instead of worrying about it for a whole week, I'll just do it right now so that it's done and I don't need to think about it anymore. Unfortunately, a lot of things in life are a little bit time sensitive, especially when dealing with other people. And so I can't just get everything done in advance whenever I want to. Sometimes I need to wait for people to get back to me. Some things require actually doing an action in person at a particular time. I can't attend my friend's birthday party a month in advance. I can't do a month worth of one-on-one life coaching all in one day in advance just to get it out of the way so that I don't need to think about it for the rest of the month. There are certain commitments that are time sensitive that I can't simply do in advance. And that really stresses me out a lot of the time, Probably, if I'm guessing, because I don't necessarily know how much energy I'm going to have tomorrow. So if I have energy today, I think, great, I feel fantastic. Can I please just do the thing right now? Because if I have to wait 8 hours and then do the thing, then I'm not sure if I'm going to be in the right mindset. I'm not sure I'm going to have enough energy. Maybe just waiting around has tired me out. And now I haven't been productive. I haven't done anything. And I still haven't checked that one important task off my to-do list yet. So I think this has something to do with the responsibility hypervigilance that I spoke about in a previous video. If I know I need to do something, it's very, very, very difficult to put it out of my mind and forget about it completely until it's 100% done and needs no further attention, which can be very, very productive. Like I'm recording a video right now, not because I planned to record a video today, but because I had the idea for this video because it was so pertinent to my situation today. And I thought, it's all in my brain right now. I had better record it right now, because if I think about it and I try and record it tomorrow or next week or next month or at some other point, it's going to be a lot more work for me to get myself back into this brain state to be able to record the video. So let's just leverage all of that energy and do it right now while the iron's hot. So hopefully you can see how that can be really productive sometimes. The downside comes when I should really be focusing on something else, like this morning, writing my book. And unfortunately, that one task that hasn't been done, even though it's not that urgent and I can do it tomorrow, is really stressing me out, taking all of my energy, even without being productive, and making it incredibly difficult to switch tasks and focus properly onto the thing I'm supposed to be doing today. So today, for example, I've got a presentation coming up at a primary school in a little bit. So at some point I need to sit down and figure out what I'm going to say and put some slides together so I've got some visuals. And for me personally, that particular part of the preparation process is the worst. I am absolutely not very graphically minded, so trying to figure out what visuals are going to be appropriate to accompany my presentation is actually a real challenge. So it's a really stressful task, but it's also a stressful task that I've scheduled for tomorrow and I shouldn't have to think about today. But even though the deadline is way off into the future, my brain wants to get it done right now. So that's why I'm calling this the opposite of procrastination, because I don't wait for the deadline. I don't care when the deadline is. If it's tomorrow, next week, next year, I want to get it done right now so that I don't have to worry about it. So I'm curious to hear if you can relate to that as well. I definitely have a feeling it's related to the responsibility hypervigilance I've been describing in previous videos. And now that I've identified it as a thing, I'm starting to recognize the strategies that I intuitively use to get around it. So there are essentially 3 strategies that I can think of that I regularly use to handle this issue. Strategy number 1, I've already mentioned it briefly, is just do it. If an important task is clogging up my mind, then why don't I just let myself focus on that, get it done, and then it will be, number 1, productive, number 2, ahead of time, and number 3, it will be completely out of my mind because it's done. That can often backfire because if I am preparing something well in advance, it's very, very easy to overcommit and to spend too much time on it and spend like an hour writing an email that should really take 5 minutes and things like that. But in general, sometimes, like recording this video today, it's much better for me and much more productive and much better on my brain if I just follow my energy and just do the thing that my brain seems to be obsessed about right now. The second strategy I have is to deliberately schedule it in advance with plenty of time. And that with plenty of time is incredibly important so that my brain can relax about the issue. If I know I'm going away tomorrow and I think, oh, I'll set an alarm so that I'll pack my bag 15 minutes before I need to go out the door, that doesn't feel safe. Like, what if something comes up and I can't get everything together in that 15 minutes and then I'm late and then bad things happen? So what I need to do is schedule it well in advance with a generous amount of time that I can feel confident will definitely be enough time. So again, you can see how this is the opposite of the people who are energized and motivated by tight deadlines. I get really stressed out and paralyzed by tight deadlines. And instead, if I know I have plenty of time later, then I can relax right now. I also utilize things like electronic calendars and reminders. That way I'm 100% sure that I can completely forget about it and I will be reminded at an appropriate time that will give me plenty of time to get the job done. And the third strategy that I use sometimes, but it doesn't always work because it really depends on the situation, is to trust someone else with the job. So this is one of the reasons, ironically, that I really love working in teams, working with other people, because it means I'm not the only one responsible. It means I can do my part and I can have a look, did we miss anything? But even if I'm not too thorough, even if I've accidentally missed something, someone else will also be looking at it, will also be able to see if there's anything I've missed. And that helps me to check things only twice as opposed to checking things 4 or 5 or 6 or 1,500 times. So how can I trust someone else? An example could be bouncing an idea. What do you think of this? Does that sound reasonable? And if the answer is yes, of course, why are you even asking me? Then I'm like, okay, great. So maybe this plan is finished and I don't need to work on it anymore. Or maybe I'll outsource a task entirely. Hey, can you organize the drinks for tonight? Can you organize a venue or a taxi or a birthday present or whatever it is that I am not going to be responsible for that at all, and you're going to figure it out and I don't need to think about it anymore because someone else is taking care of it. Now, obviously it needs to be someone else I trust to actually handle it, but very often that's enough to just quiet my brain and allow me to just forget about it entirely and focus on my part of the contribution. Anyway, I'd better leave it there. Hopefully that made sense. I'm really curious to hear if you relate to this. Maybe I should come up with a name for it. So far, I've just said the opposite of procrastination, whatever that means. If you can think of examples where this pops up in your own life, I'd love to hear them in the comments. Otherwise, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you again next week. Bye.